Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 9:30 p.m. here, Calgary, Alberta, Monday, June the 7th. I'm happy to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us. It's a 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. I have my chat room open, and if anyone wants to sit in there, and I've got a good friend in there already. And, I'm just glad to be able to do these shows, glad to be here, and, just to be one more voice and keep speaking out against abuse and standing up for child rights and for children and to stop child abuse, and prevent child abuse and all human rights abuses, really. But I'm focused on child rights and child abuse because it needs to stop. And so, I'm glad you can join me. We're going to continue on with the Child Abuse Handbook. I was actually working on this last week as well. We were going over this on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night. And this is a free PDF download from Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and it's called the Child Abuse Handbook, compiled by Donna Shear and Sandra Potter. Donna Shear is a best-selling author. She's also the president of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and Sandra Potter is the CEO and founder of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, who's an author as well. They're both mothers, and they both combine this. They both work together to compile this information, right? And it's called the Child Abuse Handbook. It's a free PDF download. I hope everyone will get a copy of it, or at least download it. You don't necessarily have to print it off. But if you read through it one time, you'll have a good enough knowledge base of what the signs and symptoms are of all the different kinds of abuse. All right, some signs are easier to spot than others, right? And so that's the whole issue. You want to know all the signs and symptoms, right? Because you could save a child's life by becoming educated and aware of what these signs and symptoms are, and then how to report it. And so that's why we were going through this. I got my copy, and I was happy to have it, and I learned a lot from it. And so the information, there's all kinds of resources and links on this actual document, and they actually listed the sources where they got their information. So it's all really good, reliable sources, and it's just the information that's out there. It's just that they took the time and made an effort to compile it so that people will have a sort of a one-stop resource manual. It's good for people who work with children, daycare centers, teachers, guidance counselors at schools, just anybody. It's good for anybody who works with children, and even if you don't work with children, it's a good idea that everybody know the signs and symptoms. That's the whole issue regarding education and prevention, right? To make sure that the children in your life and around who live around you and in your world are not being abused, right? So that's the whole issue. So we're going to continue on with that. And the next portion that where we left off was that intervention. So we went through all the signs, the physical, sexual, psychological, emotional, and verbal, abuse signs and symptoms. And so now we're going to go over the intervention portion of it. So I'm not a professional. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates, therapy certificates. I'm just a person who pays to do my own blog talk show. I am an advocate for children, standing up against abuse. I study child rights, and I'm in between courses, can't afford to go. So I plan on picking up, continuing on in the courses that I'm enrolled at eventually here. And so I keep studying. I'm just studying all the time. I'm working and researching all the time to keep getting the information, right? And I just figure, why not pass it on, Everybody needs to get involved. We all need to stand up for children. They don't have a voice. They don't have protection. Otherwise, we wouldn't see these cases that are in the paper every day. Cases of children dying at the hands of their parents or caregivers. These children are every day ending up in the hospital due to abuse-related injuries, right? So it's pretty obvious that the children really are not protected well enough. And so we all need to become aware of the signs and symptoms and really look out for the kids in our lives, in our own worlds, and in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and get involved, whether locally or with a group like Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, who's doing some great work. And there's so many good organizations out there, right? So just as long as you're supporting one, or as many as you can, to be a part of it, right? We all need to be a part of this. We need to be a part of the change. I keep saying this, if we want to see a better tomorrow, we're going to have to change today. And I'm sure that's a quote from somebody, but I don't know who it's from. That's just the whole issue. What we do today is definitely going to be what happens tomorrow is the direct result of what we did today. So we need to stop child abuse, and so we need to keep working at it every day until we can get this stopped. Right? Kids are suffering and dying at the hands of adults and caregivers and parents and other children, and it's absolutely horrible. It needs to stop, and we really have to get busy working on it. So that's why I'm doing this show. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I really ask that you have permission to listen to my shows. I have a lot of adult content on here, and I do care about children. That's why I do what I do. So I'm asking that you would get someone to listen to the show, and, you know, an adult, whether it's a parent or caregiver, grandparent, teacher, guidance counselor, coach, someone who can listen to an archive show just to make sure it's something you should be listening to, and make sure you keep yourself safe online. There's so many online sexual predators trying to get a hold of children, and they will do anything they can to get a hold of you, including pretending to be someone your age and pretending to like to do all the things you like to do, including listening to music that you like and going to movies that you like and skateboarding or whatever they like to do. And they will fake you out. They'll try to trick you into meeting them someplace after school, and then a lot of children are losing their lives, and if they're not killed, they're sexually assaulted by these child sexual predators. And so the whole thing is you want to keep yourself safe, and you want someone to know what you're doing online at all times, and watch out, get the education. You know, fear is not the way to live, and fear is a really bad way to live, and fear won't save you, but education will. Knowing how to keep yourself safe. That will definitely give you a good solid base to go on, how to keep yourself safe online. So just start typing into your browser, Internet Safety for Children, Online Safety for Children, Online Safety, you know, anything like that, Internet Safety. It'll bring you up to a bunch of websites that will show you how to stay safe online. So important. So we'll get right on with this child abuse handbook here. This is such a good handbook, and I've read through it a couple times now, and it's just so good. Intervention is where we left off. It says child abuse intervention, a report of abuse and neglect to the proper authorities, may be done by telephone, by letter, by email, or in person. A report can be made anonymously, but divulging who you are and the relationship you have with the child will aid in the investigation. Child abuse intervention refers to handling disclosures of abuse. Disclosures can be powerful, verbal, or accidental, nonverbal. Purposeful disclosures occur when the child or youth consciously decides to discuss his or her abuse, and then they list here. They say, see table below for top reasons why youth disclose abuse. So they have here why a child does disclose abuse, and then they go on to talk about why a youth or child does not disclose abuse, and they talk about that and give the percentages of why. And we'll read through those. Why a child does disclose abuse. 76% said, I told because I couldn't hold it in any longer. 56% said, I told because I wanted it to stop so my life could go on. 56% said, I told because I wanted him or her to be punished, whoever the abuser was, right? 53% said, I finally felt comfortable enough to tell. 50% said, I was afraid someone else would get hurt if I didn't talk. 48% said I was afraid I'd get hurt if I didn't tell. And 41% said I told because I couldn't sleep, eat, think anymore. And 41% said I got tired of the unwanted sexual experiences. 40% said someone else convinced me to tell. 35% said someone else told me about their unwanted experiences. And 31% said I was pregnant or afraid I might be. 28% said due to a school program about unwanted sex experiences. That's why they told or disclosed the abuse. 22% said I told because I didn't want to go home. And why a youth doesn't disclose abuse. This is reasons why they don't actually come forward and tell someone that they're being abused. 74% said I was scared. That's a high percentage, right? 60% I was embarrassed. 55% I didn't want to get in trouble. 47% I didn't want anyone else to get into trouble. That's almost 50%, right? 46% no one would believe me. That's a huge issue with child abuse, and you know, it's such a problem when parents don't believe their children when their child comes forward to tell a parent that they are being abused or sexually abused or molested in some way, and the parent doesn't believe them. That's a huge problem in society, actually. And there's lots and lots of reports out there and websites regarding this issue, and they said that most, and actually it's like 99.9% or something like that, of abuse allegations, especially to deal with sexual abuse. If a child comes to you and tells you they are being abused, 99.9% sure that it is happening. The children do not make this kind of stuff up. they did do some studies. They found out that out of all the cases of child abuse, especially to do with child sexual abuse, there was only one known case that they actually were able to prove that this child had actually made up the story. The rest, it was all very evident, and that's the whole issue, right? So many children are not believed when they come forward and try to tell someone that they are being abused, and I think it's a lot of times the parents, whoever the parent is, mother or father or in the family, a family member, they don't want to deal with it because, first of all, if it's another family member, it's going to break up the family. They might have been abused themselves as well. That's another issue. If someone's abused sexually as a child and they grow up and they never tell anybody, and then their own children become victims, which is actually does happen a lot, but unfortunately, but it's true. The stats are out there. Their own children would become victims of child sexual abuse or molestation, and then they don't want to really come to terms or grips with the fact that they were abused as children sexually, and so they just blow off the whole situation with their child being abused, right? So because they can't cope with it, they just can't deal with it. So this is the sad part, right? So children suffer because no one will get them help, and that's the whole issue. If a child comes to you and tells you that they've been abused, which quite often they won't, they won't disclose it, but if they do, you need to report it. It's actually the law, and you could save that child's life, or you could help them to get help, right? And instead of suffering on in a whole lifetime of abuse, right? Or possibly even losing their lives. So this is the whole issue. And you could stop other children from being abused, right? Because if you stop the abuser from abusing that child, chances are they're probably abusing more children if they can get a hold of them. So that's the whole issue with the reporting abuse. You could save a whole bunch of children's lives, really. And that's why it has to be reported, and that's why, it's the law. So that's the whole issue. You have to believe a child, and, and go with it. If they tell you they're being abused, report it. But there's ways to report it, and really, you can't lead the questions. You have to just let the child talk in their own words. Write down everything the child says, and don't lead the questions. Because the information that you collect might not be able to be used in court, and the child could end up back in the home with the abuser. So that's why you have to know that it's just who, when, where, who did it, when did it happen, where did it happen, how did it, how many times did it happen, you could say. There's just some very simple questions to ask, and then go to the authorities and make sure you get some help for that child, right? So important. And it says here, here's another reason why children don't disclose abuse is 29% I still like or love the other person, right, the abuser. 29% said it was my fault as much as the other person's. They take on the role, the guilt, they take on as if it was their fault or they caused it to happen, right? And a lot of times abusers will manipulate their victims, right? And they'll say, well, this is your fault. This is the reason why this is happening. It's all your fault. And if a child hears that enough, a young person hears that enough, and they aren't getting any support from any other adults out there, and their self-worth and self-esteem and confidence levels are very low, they very well might believe that it is their fault, right? So that's the whole issue. There's a lot of manipulation going on with abuse. That's why abuse needs to stop. It's all very underhanded, very evil, and there's no truth in it. You know what I mean? So that's the whole issue with child abuse, right? It's all surrounded by lies and people hiding secrets and people hiding things, right? Families trying to hide secrets and people trying to hide what they've done to children, right? And it's always surrounded by a bunch of silence and a bunch of lies, right? That's the whole problem with abuse. And so that's why, everyone needs to speak up and be a voice for children out there, right? It's so important. And if you were abused as a child, you really have to make sure you don't suffer in silence. Because that's what abusers would love to have happen, right? So that they don't get brought up on charges, or so that no one will know what they did, right? Abusers don't want people to know that they've abused a child, right? And because it means that they'll possibly have to stop what they're doing. You know what I mean? Because they'll either be arrested or convicted of child abuse and put away for some period of time, or they'll be looked down upon by their family and peers, right? Because they're found out. The truth is found out. That's why truth is so absolutely important. And that's why getting to the truth is so important. And that's why reporting abuse is so important, right? We have to stand up for these children. We really do. And if who else is going to do it? The family's obviously not often going to do it. Has to usually be somebody from the outside, who knows, and that the family's having problems and suspects abuse. Then you have to make the phone call, right? And it says, when a report of abuse and neglect is made, child abuse intervention dictates that the person or organization making the report must act in a way that protects the child or youth, protects other children or youth who may be involved, respects the rights of alleged abuser, keeps information confidential, cooperates with child protection agencies and possibly police. And it says you may report suspected child abuse to child protection agencies, local law enforcement, police stations, national child abuse hotlines. And there's, in the front of people's phone books, in their local phone books, generally there's hotlines, kids help phones, there's family crisis lines, child abuse hotlines, if you suspect child abuse. Generally, in most cities' phone books, there's numbers right in the front of the phone book, and there's just so many ways and places you can report child abuse, right? And you can remain anonymous if you have to. Otherwise, you don't have to. If you want them to know your relationship to the child and you want to be able to be part of the actual investigation, then you don't have to remain anonymous. But a person can if they just feel that they don't want their identity to be revealed. So that's the whole issue. But as long as we report it, right? That's the important thing. It says your child abuse intervention is everyone's responsibility, ethically, morally, and legally. Stop further child abuse by reporting it. So that's the whole issue, right? And prevention, it says teach your children the difference between acceptable and unacceptable touching and to trust their instincts about people. Educate yourself about the signs of abuse so you'll be able to detect it. And nowadays there's a lot of work being done with the good touch, bad touch in schools and whatnot. There's lots of websites out there regarding how to talk to your children. There's lots of great information out there for parents nowadays on how to actually age-appropriate stuff, how to talk to your kids about child sexual abuse and good touch, bad touch, and whatnot. And it says understand that child abuse means any kind of harm done to a child and does not just mean sexual abuse. Teach your children that there is a difference between good and bad touches. Explain what these are. Explain that no one has the right to hurt your child or touch him or her in private areas or touch in any way that makes him or feel uncomfortable. And tell your children that the words they need to remember are no, go, yell, tell. If anyone touches them in a way they don't like or tries to get them to go with a stranger or person they don't feel comfortable with, they should always say no and go away from the person or situation as quickly as possible. Use their danger voice to yell. A danger voice is a very loud, low-pitched yell that gets attention immediately. It is not a high-pitched screech. It should never be used in any other situation. And so it's a certain, it's a tone of voice. So, because young kids, when they're little kids, when they're playing, man, they'll screech and they'll be screaming and having a good time, and that's their screechy good time voice, right? But they should have another yell that actually alerts people to danger, right? Tell a parent, teacher, or caregiver immediately about what happened. And help your children understand that they need to be wary, not just of the traditional idea of strangers, but of anyone who makes them feel uncomfortable, even if it is someone they know. Because really, 90% of abuse of all types, but especially child sexual abuse, the perpetrator is usually someone the child knows, whether it's a family member or a family friend. And most cases, it's a family member, direct family member. But sometimes it's a family friend, but 90% the child will know this person because that's who has access to the child. So you got to keep that in mind. Child abuse doesn't happen just from somebody 30. Well, it does as far as like online child pornography and whatnot. But I'm talking like when somebody has access to a child. It's not somebody 20 miles away. It's somebody who has access to the child. So you got to think about where your child is and who your child is around all day. You know what I mean? That's the whole issue. Children are being abused by parents, by caregivers, by family members who watch the child during the day while you're working. Nannies, daycare workers, school teachers are actually known to be quite a problem these days. I don't know if it's just because it's being reported more or if we're just seeing more and more cases of it. I don't know, but there's all kinds of problems right now with all kinds of sexual abuse from teachers, and they usually are not arrested or brought up on any charges. They're just moved across the country to teach in another school. Start looking around, get the information. It's out there. And so you got to know who your child is around, and you should know, really know who these people are, right? You can't just trust anybody, and you just can't just say, oh, it never happened to my child, or it would never happen to us, or in our neighborhood. Couldn't possibly happen in our town. Couldn't happen in our part of the city. We don't have these problems here. These are things that people could be thinking in the back of their mind. We live in a safe neighborhood. This could never happen. There's no such thing anymore, right? I don't think there ever was. It's a false sense of security, and really what it is, it's a lack of education. And what it does is it gets children into a lot of trouble because no one's keeping their eyes open, and then they are paying the price, right? And these child sexual predators know this, and they know who to look out for. They're watching for children who are vulnerable. They're watching for children who don't have a good home life. They're watching for children who don't have any education on how to keep themselves safe. They're looking for kids who they can get a hold of, right? So you don't want that to happen to your kids, right? You want your kids to know how to be very, proactive, right? And how to make sure that they do, tell someone if someone tries to touch them or tries to do anything to them, that they will tell someone right away, and that they will get help, and they will, use their voice and scream out and say no, and, this is a stranger, and get away from me, and run. There's just things you have to teach your kids. That's all there's to it. I was a young person. I was on the streets quite a bit growing up, and, I had about 5 instances where people could have actually taken me, and I was very lucky to get away from these people. And one time I ran by myself and got myself away, but 4 other times I was actually saved by other adults in the area who were actually paying attention. Thank God. You know what I mean? Because any one of those people could have taken me, and I would have been one of those missing kids, right? So that's the whole issue. It's so important to know what's going on with your child. You just cannot trust that your child is okay in the front yard anymore, you know what I mean, or out in the backyard. You just can't. And, I know parents want to give their kids as much, to help build confidence and whatnot and trust. They want to, allow their children to go off and be independent, whatnot, right? Well, you got to keep them safe. So if you're going to do that, you need to teach them everything that they need to know before they start venturing out on their own with their friends and whatever they're doing, right? It's so important that they know that they need to be on the lookout for everyone. Because child sexual predators and whatnot do not look like these monsters wearing black coats running around in the middle of the night with these weird hats on, with a terrible look on their face. These are people that live right next door to you. They probably drive a very nice car. They probably have a really good job. And they seem like the best people in the whole world, and they would love to watch your kids any afternoon that you need to leave them, right? Anytime you have an errand to run, they'll be there, oh, I'll watch your children. They usually try to befriend the family, right? They're very manipulative people, and they're sick, right? There's something wrong with them, right? So that's why they can do that. Their abusers are very manipulative, and they will use all kinds of means and methods to get a hold of children, right? So, of course, they want to come across as the friendly person who loves your kids, and they love you, and they want to be at the barbecues all the time, building this trust relationship, and before you know it, you've got yourself a real problem, because here you trust this person, and you leave your children with them for one day while you go shopping, and who knows what's going to happen to these kids. So that's why it's so important to not to actually get the information, get the facts, know what's going on. You know what I mean? This is a huge issue, and you don't want your child to end up a victim. You know what I mean? And then a survivor, right? If they actually live of a child sexual predator or any abuser, whether it's someone in the home, it's just so important. So that's why it's very important to know, how to teach your kids how to prevent, so they can keep themselves safe when they're not around you. They need to know this stuff, right? And it says, talk to your children about situations they must avoid, like taking any food or medicine from a person who is not a parent, teacher, caregiver, or close friend. And even that, they should tell you all this stuff like that's going on. They should tell, if somebody says, oh, you need to take this medicine, they should come to you to tell you, oh, my teacher said I should take this. No one should be actually giving any child medicine that the child doesn't know that you know about, right? This is the whole thing. It should be a whole communication going on between you and your child. And, it's hard. I know. I can't imagine. I'm not a parent, you know what? But I see what's going on out there with my own family members who have had children. I was a child. I knew lots of friends and who were young and they were children. You know what I mean? So I'm not completely oblivious to the whole child-parent relationship. The whole idea is you want your children to trust you and to know that they can come to you and tell you anything, and that you're not going to be mad, you're not going to blame them, you're not going to hurt them, you're not going to take privileges away because they come and tell you this. They need to know that you are the number one first person in their life that they can come to with anything, and that you will be there for them, no matter what it is, right? Because that's who they need to count on you as their number one protector. Because as a parent, you should be their number one protector, right? Not the number one enemy, right? And so if you want a good relationship with your child down the road, later on in years, you have to start out really, really young. And you have to build that relationship from birth, zero to whatever. It's just so important, and that's what people are actually not doing, and it's unfortunate, and that's why there's all these problems, right? And society is just breaking down more and more because no one's raising their children. They're just bringing them into the world and then dumping them off somewhere else. They're getting hurt. They're getting abused. Half the time the parents are abusing them. Actually, 80% is the parents. It's just sick, and it's wrong. It's got to stop. So that's the whole issue, right? As a parent, really, I think parents owe their kids the best life that they can possibly provide for them, until they get out on their own and have their own lives. And everybody makes mistakes. No one's perfect. No child's perfect, that's for sure. And no parent is perfect. But as long as you try and you make your best effort, then your child will know that you did the very best you could to protect them. And it goes a really long way. You know what I mean? When a child knows that you don't care about them and that, you're just not there for them, that doesn't get you anywhere in the books, you know what I mean? They will not have much to do with you, you know what I mean? Because why should they? If you're not looking out for them and you're not caring about them and caring where they are and teaching them and bringing them up to know what's going on and what's good, what's not good, this is the whole issue. Kids are just being kind of brought up in front of the TV, and there's no real parenting going on. There's no relationship. There's no parent-child relationship anymore. We're not talking best friends, because parents really, I don't think it's necessary that parents be a child's best friend. They need to be their number one protector and their number one teacher, right? Because, and then also a very loving person in their lives who's got their best interests at heart. And the respect will be there. If you respect your children, they will respect you, right? And so that's the whole issue. So that's why it's so important to make sure that we know what's going on with the issues of child abuse. And that's why I just keep doing these shows, and just keep talking and talking. And I know, and I have regular people that just tune into my shows, and I really appreciate everyone who is supporting me and just being here with me all the time. And I really, I'm so happy to stand with all of you because united, we will stop child abuse. I really believe this, or I wouldn't be doing this show right now. I'd be just watching movies or, going out for an ice cream or something. I really believe we can do it, and it's going to take all of us, but we can do it. So we have about a minute left, and I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. You can get this child abuse handbook yourself, free PDF download from www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com, or Lulu. Just go to Lulu, and you can actually type in the child abuse handbook, and it will come up, or Dreamcatchers for Abused Children on Lulu.com, because it's a Shear and Potter book. And so they have their own publishing company, and they do their own publishing of their books. So you can pick it up a number of ways, right? And if you need anything, get a hold of me. You can send me a message on Blog Talk Radio here, or you can get a hold of me on Facebook. If there's some information I can help you find, or if you need anything, and I can possibly even help direct you in the right direction, then I'd be glad to do it. And, if you just want to chat, yeah, be sure and look me up. I'm usually on Facebook periodically throughout the day. And so, yeah, I just hope everybody has a great night. Take care of yourselves. I'll be on tomorrow night, Dreamcatchers Talk Radio. Tuesday night, Donna Shear will be hosting with me, and we'll be on at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren. It's www. blogtalkradio.com/dreamcatchers. That's the one. So, I hope you can tune into that show and catch the archive there from tonight from Elizabeth Roberts-Brawley and myself that we did tonight, and more on the Child Abuse Handbook. I just happen to be doing this on my show, too, at the same time, which is kind of funny. But anyway, have a great night, everybody, and take care, and we'll be talking to you soon. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock a.m., one child abuse survivor to another, and we'll be continuing on with coping lists and whatnot. So take care of yourselves. Have an awesome day in Australia, and have a lovely evening everywhere else, and we'll be talking to you real soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.